Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Oh, wait. I was on trial.
Is that how you talk to people while you're on the stand?
Yes, I do.
I actually talk to the jury, but that's cool. All right, this is the Bunny Rabbit's Hole. I am Jason.
I am Craig.
All right, so for those of you that have never listened to us before, what we do is we take a central topic, a theme. We talk about that for a little bit, and then if something in there inspires us to talk about something else, that sends us down a Bunny Rabbit's Hole. In this case, the Bunny Rabbit's Hole. And then when we get to the end of that, or when Craig finally gets annoyed with me jabbering along, he brings us back to the main point, and then we continue on from there. So, what, Craig, are we talking about today?
Today's episode is brought to you by the Michigan Dogman and the letter C.
And the letter C?
Yeah, I don't know why. It just is.
Okay, so I know this little Mexican lady. She's like, I say Mexican lady because she is actually from Mexico. She turned to another guy I know, held out her phone, and it had a picture of a cat, her cat. And she goes, "See my cock?"
Anyways.
Yeah, so that is the letter C, everybody.
Yep. But, okay, so the Michigan Dogman. And before we get started, yes, we do our research for every topic we do. So what's mixed in is our research and our opinions. And if we offend you, get over it. Get over yourself. You're not that important, just like we're not that important.
If you're offended by what we're going to talk about today, or if you came back from the last episode, welcome back. But these are opinions. This is a entertainment podcast. We try to do comedy. We don't call it a comedy podcast because neither one of us are comedians, but it's entertainment.
Right.
Period. End of story. Now, on to the legend of the Michigan Dogman.
All right. Now, the Michigan Dogman is, I live in Michigan, so, I remember this. Back in 1987, there was a DJ in Traverse City, and he, as an April Fool's Day joke, came up with this song called The Legend. Mm-hmm. And now, the legend was about the Michigan Dogman, and people didn't come forward really before this to talk about the Dogman, but there are sightings that date all the way back to 1887. That's the first reported one, and it was by some lumberjacks. They saw this Dogman, but I digress. The first reported sighting was in Wexford County, Michigan. It was described as a 7-foot-tall, blue or amber-eyed and bipedal canine-like animal with torso of a man, fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. According to legends, he's seen in 10-year cycles ending in 7, which is untrue because I've got other sightings that are end in 6, end in 5, end in 4.
And an 8.
Right. So, there's tons and tons of sightings. If you do research on the Michigan Dogman, you will be buckle in for several hours worth of research.
Okay. So I think what is the Michigan Dogman? Now, one of the things that I was looking at is a lot of people are claiming that the Dogman is actually a Wendigo.
Right.
Now, if you don't know what a Wendigo is, in Algonquin folklore, it is a mythical man-eating monster or evil spirit that roams the Great Lakes region and the northern forests of U.S. and Canada, but it has an insatiable need to eat flesh.
Right, and also to add on to that, the Wendigo was actually human at one point. It was a native who had turned to cannibalism, and that's how they became the Wendigo.
Right. Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. It's also in the Ojibwe and Chippewa lore as well.
Okay.
And also along with that, there's several people who think that because they also had skinwalkers and shapeshifters in their lore. And some people believe that the Michigan Dogman was, caught in mid-transition.
Oh, okay.
Stuck like that.
So, but is the Michigan Dogman a werewolf? If it's not a Wendigo, would it be a werewolf?
I don't know, because we think of werewolves, yes, it's canine, but it's more wolf-like. This is more dog-like. I mean, because there's differences in the snouts and stuff like that, and between a wolf and a dog.
Yeah.
And more people describe it as a dog than a wolf.
Okay.
But yes, it's some sort of lycanthropy, I would think. Or actually, you think of a werewolf, it changes back and forth.
Yeah. Now, would you classify the Michigan Dogman as something that is human part of the time, part-time, and other time it could be, out there, or is that why it's so hard to see?
I would, I didn't actually think about this when I was doing my research, but it's a good point. But, if you think about it, because there's no real proof, there's photos and stuff like that, but it would make more sense if it was human at some times and then the creature at other times.
There are other cryptids out there that we don't normally see, like Bigfoot, the Sasquatch,
Right.
They're out there, but we don't see them, or we've only seen grainy footage of them, which is kind of the same with the Dogman. When you see a lot of the media stuff that's out there, it's grainy footage, or it's faked footage, or it would make sense to me it makes sense that it would be a shapeshifter of some sort, where that's why we haven't seen it all the time. But you're right, the song, the legend, states that it comes out on once a decade in the 7 year, which is bullshit, but
right.
And there's enough reports of this out there, accounts of a dog standing upright and seeing it run like a man, but leaving only paw prints behind. That there's something to this.
Right.
This isn't just a bunch of idiots, and it's not just this people, bullshitting because they heard this song that this DJ did.
Right. Well, and almost every report of the Michigan Dogman says it's bipedal, it's between 7 and 8 feet tall, and has either blue or amber eyes.
Okay.
Every description, everyone I ran into have all those details in it.
That's pretty specific.
Yeah. And also, another one that wasn't in all of them, but was in a lot of them, was like this mane of hair around the neck.
Oh. Did it have a bandana, wear a cowboy hat too, the Bret Michaels of Dogman?
Right. But it's interesting because we touched on it a little bit in
Dogman the Bounty Hunter.
Right. We touched on it a little bit in last episode. It's kind of like, you tell your kids, hey, stay out of the woods at night or the Dogman will eat you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But this time you don't have the Bible, you have a scary ass creature out in the woods. Now, right. That's something that growing up, we used to spend a lot of time together when we were kids.
Right.
Watching scary movies. And where you guys lived, you're surrounded by like 1,000 acres of state forest. And yeah. I remember one night specifically, we watched, I don't remember if it was Wolfen or Howling, but we watched one of those, and then you and I and then our older brothers, we all ran out in the woods like at midnight.
Right.
What is the dumbest thing you could do to scare the fuck out of yourself, but go run through 1,000 acres of forest in the middle of the night after watching a werewolf movie?
Right.
Where this isn't too far out of the realm of being Dogman area.
Right.
You guys didn't live too far where you grew up. You didn't live too far from where some of these sightings are.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of them were in the Big Rapids, Reed City area, which wasn't that far from where I grew up.
That's pretty fucked up that if this creature was out there, he's probably sitting back going, do you see this shit? Look at these fuckers.
Well, one interesting thing that I found is they say there's no recorded attacks, but I actually did. Let me see if I can find this. I don't know which one of these websites it's on, but there was an OnStar call. Did you find this in your research?
No.
Oh, this is interesting. I'm gonna keep looking for it. Hold on, I think I'm gonna find it. Go ahead.
No, just while you're looking, it's like, so I guess the best way you probably, if you've ever seen the movie The Howling, where the dude transforms into the werewolf in the office. It's like he's in the office building and he's transforming in front of this woman. He's growing taller and he's becoming wolf-like, but he's still bipedal. And I guess that's probably one of the best descriptions of what the Dogman would be like in real life, because this dude grew to like 7-8 feet tall, but obviously instead of a wolf face, he'd have more of a dog face.
Right. All right. So this is an OnStar attack in Troy, Michigan. So, I say OnStar attack because they were on the phone with OnStar. I want to play it and see if you can actually hear it.
Okay.
Let me see. Of course, it's got to load up and all that crap. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay, let's listen to this.
OnStar emergency. This is Kyle speaking. How can I help you? Hello?
Something just ran in front of us on the road. We're in the ditch. We rolled over.
How many people are in the car, and is anyone injured?
There's two of us. I don't think we have any injuries.
Is the car on its top or wheels or what?
No, it's kind of sitting on its side.
And one moment, please, while I contact emergency services.
Okay.
Wait for it.
Okay, the state police should be on their way in a few minutes. Is everyone still okay?
Yeah, I think we're okay.
What ran in front of you? A deer?
I don't know what the hell it was, but it was big. It looked like a great big dog. Standing up.
Was it a bear, maybe?
Maybe, I don't know.
Sir?
Yeah. So, and that's basically how it ends. Yeah, I start going, sir, is there anybody there?
Wow.
So now they say there's no recorded attacks, but I would kind of maybe think that was an attack.
I think that was recorded.
Yeah.
Recorded.
Did you hear the growl in there?
I did. That was that's what I was going fuck about, because that was guttural. That was primal. That's a little hard to fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a little hard to fake, like having her do it to them in the car.
Right. Yeah, I found that interesting. That was one of them that I was hoping that you'd be able to hear it, so that I could play it over there. There's also a reported back in 1938, this 17-year-old kid named Robert Portney. He was standing near the Muskegon River in Paris, Michigan. Yes, we have a Paris, Michigan.
Yeah, it's about as dirty.
Yep. He was confronted by a massive black dog. He didn't report this until 49 years later, but he swore the beast reared up on its legs and stared him down with piercing blue eyes. He was terrified, so he shot at the creature and it quickly fled. Now, that's another thing people talk about is its amazing speed and amazing leaping abilities. I mean, he was terrified about this for years to come. And that's apparently why he didn't talk about it for 49 years.
I mean, would you?
No. Yeah, actually, I probably would, because that's just.
In one of his versions of the story, he says that all the dogs made a dash for it except for the largest one, which stood up and stared him down.
Yeah, because he was attacked by like 5 dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It stood up and stared him down. He's got a rifle.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Well, another odd thing about this thing is everybody, when they talk about it, the majority of them talk about it standing on 2 legs.
Mm-hmm.
And people, that's where that kind of the wolf thing comes in, because people will be like, well, when wolves see their prey, they'll stand on 2 legs, but they can only do it for a couple seconds, not a minute.
Right. And so for those of you who haven't listened to the actual song, the legend, there's a verse in there where they talk about a bunch of lumberjacks out there, and they see a dog and they kind of chase it down, and it gets cornered into a hollowed out log, and for some reason one of the jackasses pokes it with a stick.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any fucking sense to any normal person. This is a feral dog. It's wild. It's cornered. It's gonna defend itself. So let's poke it with a stick, see what it does. There's 11 of us. Ha ha ha. But joke's on them because it comes out of the log and stands up, and it's taller than all of them. So lumberjacks leave. They poop their pants a little.
Right.
But,
well, there's and what's interesting is, we talked last episode. We talked about the red bearded giant in Afghanistan, but here in the United States, like every state has its own cryptid, so to speak.
Right. West Virginia's got the Mothman. There's Jersey Devil. There's there's the swamp monster in Florida or in Carolina, I think.
Yep, and the chupacabra down in southern states. But it's in Minnesota. Is it Minnesota or Wisconsin? One of those two. Yeah, Wisconsin. They have the Beast of Bray Road, which all the descriptions is really similar to the Michigan Dogman. Yeah,
and there's actually like supposed footage of the Bray Road, but when you look at it, it's very similar. It's like almost like it takes the ferry from Sheboygan over, and then fucks around in Wisconsin for a little bit, and then takes the ferry back and comes back to Michigan.
Right. Well, and everybody's like, well, why couldn't you get a clear picture? We have such great technology. Okay, you're excited. You're not ready to take a picture. So when you go take a picture, you're going to be shaken.
Those are the same fuckers that can't get their kids' first birthday photos right.
Right.
And you're standing 2 feet in front of it. It's a kid in a high chair eating cake, and it's like they all look blurry. They're out of focus. Yep.
Now, I watched a YouTube video on all this. It was by Curtis Ward, and it was from 2008. And I'm going to go through some of this stuff. They had like, did you hear about the McHale photograph?
No.
Okay. This was a Polaroid picture taken in 1968 in the summer. This lady, her last name was McHale. They're in the Garden Peninsula in the Upper Peninsula. She saw some deer coming out of the woods, and a dog ran out on all fours. She said then the dog stopped, and it stood upright on two legs for like 2 minutes. So she was able to take a picture. But I saw the picture that she took, and it looked like a bear to me.
Oh, okay.
And people are like, yo, blah, blah. I'm sorry, that looks like a bear. I saw the picture, and I'm like, that's a bear. There's lots of bears in the UP. That looked like a little black bear.
So my aunt lives in the Upper Peninsula, and she's this holistic medicine, really down-to-earth human being, and she decided that, I'm going to start a compost pile. So she started composting it in behind her thing, and then her husband was already gone to work, and she went outside, and there's 3 bears in her backyard going through her compost pile.
Yep.
Yeah, so she's a fish out of water up there because that's not where she should be.
Right.
So she was the butt of a lot of jokes in that town for quite a while after that one.
Oh, I believe it. So also in this video, they have you heard of the Beast of 7 Shoots?
No, tell us about the Beast of 7 Shoots.
Okay, there was this picture taken in 2005 up in Quebec. There is a national park there called 7 Shoots. Mm-hmm. And this construction worker who was on his day off, he was out sightseeing, he was just taking random pictures, and he didn't even know this at the time when he took the picture, and didn't find it later till he had the film, developed or whatever.
A lot of mysterious photographs are actually, they're actually found that way. They didn't know. Right. Like the something Firth spaceman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, little girl with a space dude behind him.
But he had no idea that he even took a picture of this creature until afterwards. And I looked at it, and saw it being, but it, I mean, it looked like, to me, it looked like an ape.
Oh.
And people are like, oh no, has an elongated snout, but the weird thing is, it looked like it was carrying something under its arm. But I mean, you just kind of see the head and like the arm, and
Was it a barrel? And then he was throwing those at a little Italian dude.
yeah. But I mean, they had experts that went. They had like film experts. They had like, you know, animal experts and stuff like that. That, you know, they interviewed for this show on YouTube, and you know, they went through, like, they had a Photoshop expert. He said there was no layers in the picture, so it wasn't photoshopped. It wasn't edited. It wasn't a reflection of light. It was actually a solid mass. And wildlife experts couldn't identify it as any known animal that they've ever seen.
Huh.
So that kind of makes you wonder. I mean, they're lumping it in with the Dogman. It didn't look like a dog to me. It looked more apish. But I'm not an animal expert.
Yeah. You know, and there's definitely animals out there that we don't know about, and there's a whole there's a thing called cryptozoology, which is a real thing where these people study these animals that we don't necessarily know about, but it's their job to know all the animals that we do have so that they can debunk these they can investigate whether or not this is an animal that we don't know about yet.
Right.
You know, so just you know, so them, like the ape, they can go through and they'll look at all this stuff and they'll go, oh, okay, yeah, this is that. But there wouldn't be a whole science behind it if there wasn't, in fact, shit that we didn't know about that was out there.
Yeah, that we can't explain.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, we fear that which we can't explain.
Exactly.
Now, there's also an image called the Vanderbilt image. And Vanderbilt, for those who don't know, is a town that's east of Petoskey. It's in northern Michigan. It's probably, I would say, like, because here in Michigan, we measure distance by time. So it's probably about a half hour from the Mackinac Bridge. Yep. So this photo was shot in 2002 from a back porch of a hunting cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And now this one, okay, I'm looking at the image. Yeah, it looks like a Dogman, but then the experts came in and debunked the shit out of it, because it's the same photo that was used in a flyer for the advertise this British movie called Dog Soldiers.
Oh.
But it's a still from that movie that they used, and they put in this photo, and you can actually see part of the body going through the tree that it's supposed to be walking behind.
Nice.
So it wasn't done very well at all.
Gotcha. That, you know, it's so easy for them to actually, one of the first things that they do when they debunk these type of things is they throw it into a program that's like Photoshop, but they can go back and look at the contrast of the image. You could tell if it's the same. They basically turn it into like a pixelated white and black dot type of thing, and if the color scheme is consistent all the way across, then they can tell whether or not it's actually multiple layers or not, or if it's one image, kind of like you were talking about before. They could tell if it's different layers or not. But they don't even have to do that when you got shit like that, where, you know, when they're breaking the laws of physics,
right?
And you're from a movie.
Right. Well, there's a couple more examples in this YouTube video that I'm going to touch on. There's one called the Chelsea Tracks. Now, this is in Chelsea, Michigan. It was taken in the Waterloo Recreation Area. Now, some students were out camping, and this image surfaced in the late 80s, and it was a 35 millimeter negative.
Mm-hmm.
The picture that they took, the students they hear weird noises at night while they're camping, and then they found some tracks that were animal tracks, and they're evenly spread at a distance that showed that it was walking on two legs. They put their what the picture was is somebody's hand next to the track, and it looks like a big paw print, like a wolf or a dog. But the track was 7 inches in diameter, and the estimated weight of the animal that made it was 250 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and the experts went through and said there was no manipulation of the photograph at all.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, we don't actually have a picture of the Dogman, but of a track.
Of the track, yeah.
And it was a big track. And it looked like either a wolf or a dog print. I mean, I've had dogs. I've seen their prints in the snow and shit. I know what they look like.
Right. Yeah, and a bear paw is a lot different than a dog paw.
Oh, yeah, much different. But there's 2 more examples in this YouTube video. One was called the On-Away Photo. Now, this one is really interesting because this one's shot from the inside of a minivan, and it was taken in 2004. Now, in the picture, you can see part of the door of the van, then the window, and through the window, you see what looks like, to me, what it looked like was an animal lunging, but they described it as an animal standing there leaning forward. They're calling it a Dogman, but it looked like a mountain lion to me.
I'm looking at it right now. It looks like a mountain lion jumping at him.
Yeah. You know, and the photo experts went over it. One of them says that, he thinks there's some digital airbrushing in it, but the other expert says he thinks that what the other guy thinks was digital brushstrokes was actually blurry from motion, not manipulation.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
He said he couldn't find any layering or composite, but honestly, it looks like a bobcat or a mountain lion.
Yeah, it looks like a mountain lion, which is bizarre in itself because there's not that many of them in that part of the country.
Right. We do have them. We have a lot in the UP.
Yeah.
I can't even remember where Chelsea, Michigan is right now. But, it's neither here nor there. To me, it does not look like a dog at all. It looks more like a cat.
Right.
Yep, go ahead.
According to this, On-Away is way up north. Not quite to, it's like Mackinac City, but like about 30 45 minutes going towards Alpena.
Okay.
To the
All
east.
right.
For those that aren't familiar with the geography of the state of Michigan, it's east of where the Mackinac Bridge, which connects the upper and lower peninsula together.
I was in Alpena last weekend.
Oh, right on.
I didn't care for it.
Now a word from our sponsor, the Alpena Tourist Board.
Right. Okay, the last example they had in this, and I'm sure you've heard of this one because it was debunked on Monster Quest, is the Gable film.
Okay, yes.
Now, for those of you who don't know, the Gable film this is how it came about. Somebody found this footage, and it looked like it was 8mm film that had been exposed to the elements for a lengthy bit of time. Mm-hmm. So they put it in, and doctored it up and cleaned it up so they could actually see. And they're trying to estimate what time period it was. And at the beginning of the film, there were some snowmobiles, and they were like snowmobiles from the 60s and 70s. Then there was a 1967 Ford pickup in it. So they figured had a lot of rust on it. So they figured it was shot in the mid 70s. Now, at the end of this film, you see this shape, and that's all I'm going to call it. Yeah. But it's down on all fours. It's this dark shape, and then it kind of runs sideways a little bit, then it charges at the camera, and then the camera turns and goes to run, and then falls down and it goes still. So I watched this film, and I watched it several times because it did not run like a dog or a wolf. It ran like an ape would. Yeah.
Or a man in a ghillie suit.
Right. Which later turned out to be true. Was a man in a suit.
Right.
But I mean, that was that YouTube video that I had watched. And I thought, that was my first bit of research. But there is so much out there. I mean, there's this author from Wisconsin, Linda S. Godfrey.
Mm-hmm.
She's got her own blog post and everything about all this stuff because she mostly handles the Beast of Bray Road, but tons of people have called her and reported sightings and stuff like that. Same with Steve Cook, the DJ from Traverse City.
Yeah.
After the song came out, he was getting hundreds and hundreds of calls from people saying, "Hey, I've seen that."
What started off as a joke almost became like a real career for him.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's an interesting one. And I say interesting to me because it's close to where I live. This happened in Reed City in 1993. So this 13-year-old girl, she's sneaking outside because she wanted to have a cigarette. So she goes out behind her family's home, and she noticed a glint of light coming through the planks of an abandoned barn. After watching for a few minutes, she realized a 6-foot-tall creature with the head of a dog was staring at her and ran away. Later, she spoke to the neighbor who claimed to have seen a buffalo-sized dog in the same barn.
A buffalo-sized dog?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big fucking dog.
That's a big fucking dog.
But yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how many sightings there are of this. I mean, I could easily talk about this for hours and go through every sighting. It's just, I find stuff like this fascinating. Another interesting thing is R.L. Stine, who's a kid's book author and writes Michigan, or writes like horror type.
The Goosebumps things. Yeah,
the Goosebumps. I mean, he makes them kid friendly, but still a little bit scary. Well, he wrote, his most recent book was The Dogman of Drummond Island, and he was actually in Drummond Island, which is an island off the UP. And he went in the library and did some book sightings there at the library in Drummond. I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome. That was great for a little community like that.
Yeah, well, that's a little community that's quite rich. Well, not the locals, but the vacationers.
Right. Now, one that I liked was the Rhonda. She's a resident of Three Lakes, Michigan, that had a dogman encounter in 2009. She was traveling on US 41, and her son, when the beast ran across the highway net from her, but there's like a dash cam footage of this one, and she was talking about the incredible speed and power of this thing, and the photo that they have that's in the thing, it kind of resembles more of a werewolf to me. Okay. The way that it's running, but it's just super fast. I mean, we're talking flash fast, which would make sense on why we don't have any decent pictures of it. Because like we were talking about before with is it a mountain lion? Is it a dogman from the minivan? Is it and the one guy says it's not photo tampering, it is motion that's blurring the image. So,
it makes sense.
Because if these things are so fast, I mean, think about a dog.
Yeah.
And everybody who's had a dog knows it's like when a dog wants something and they're going to chase them, they're fast. Even my fat little corgi actually chased down a bunny rabbit once.
Oh, wow.
That blew my mind. But so if you're talking about something that is described as all the way up to buffalo size, and other reports had said they had the physique of a bodybuilder. Right. If they're that powerful, just think how fast they could be, even if they are running on 2 legs.
Oh, yeah.
Running on Usain Bolt.
Yeah. Sorry, brain just shut off. I'm going through some of my research. And it's, both Steve Cook and the Godfrey lady both kind of put the legend down on the Native American tribes lore that said that, they think it's a skinwalker that was stuck between forms. Mm. They both go back to that. So it kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah. Going back to, so with the variety of area that these things are being sighted in, I would actually go off and say that it could actually just be one.
Oh yeah.
That is because it's a huge area that it's covering, but the length of time in between sightings. Now, you could walk that. I could walk that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you give me a year or a couple of months. You could travel that and stay out of sight. I mean,
oh yeah.
That part of the state isn't so. There's still quite a bit of forest.
Oh yeah.
Land that's up in that part of the state of the state of Michigan. So they very easily could stay out of people's sight, and it's been around long enough to where it would know that there's certain times a year that you just have to hide, like during the late fall during deer hunting season.
Right.
It's been around long enough, and it's old enough to know that, okay, when I start seeing dickheads in orange, I'm gonna hide.
Right. Well, here's another interesting one, and this one's interesting because it happened in Big Rapids. Now, Big Rapids, it's not a huge city, but it's a metropolitan area. It's got a big population, and it's not. I mean, there's woods, but it's farther outside of the town.
Is that the home of Ferris State?
Yes. Back in 1961, a night watchman was patrolling a manufacturing plant in Big Rapids. He saw a peculiar figure. At first, he thought it was a person until he saw the dog-like features. He pulled his gun and was about to shoot when he remembered his camera and took it out and took a picture of the horrific beast. But I don't see the picture anywhere. I couldn't find it. But, they said the photos haven't been analyzed yet, and it still remains an unsolved mystery. But this is Big Rapids. This is a bigger town. In
the 60s?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I mean, Ferris was, active at that time. Ferris before the 60s. So, it's to be in a bigger area like that, it kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah. Well, let me see if I can find it again right here. Okay. A man named Chuck, this was in 2011, witnessed a dog man. This is Barga County. I'm not sure if I'm even saying that right.
Barga.
He said it was a bit foggy in Dewey this morning, and he spotted a moose. And as he approached, there out of nowhere, he seen a dog man, and he said within 3 strides, the thing was gone and disappeared into what he described as an invisible wall. Because it was on the other side of the road. It jumped across the road to the south side of the road in 3 strides and went into nothing. It was gone. He said it was super fast and super stealthy. He's like, he didn't know it was there, and then he seen it and it was gone again, and they got the hell out of there because they didn't know if it was going to come back. They didn't see it in the first place.
Right.
A buffalo style dog. They referred to it as jet black fur, and it looked like a very large wolf, other than its back legs, and it had a human-like rump.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that the legs, it stand on 2 legs. The legs are bent like a dog's. Whereas the knees are kind of backwards.
Yeah.
Here's one for you. This one I found on a couple different sites. And this is from Linda Godfrey's blog. Okay. Okay. This happened in Shelby, which is a small town that lies halfway between Ludington and Muskegon. So it's on the west coast of Michigan. Now, this lady was off work, and she had a friend that lived in Muskegon, and she lived in Shelby. And her friend came up, picked her up, and took her to Muskegon. They visited for a while. Then her friend was bringing her home. And this happened in February, and at 11:30 at night. So anybody that knows anything about Michigan, the roads in February, hit or miss.
Right.
They're either going to be smooth sailing or they're going to be icy and snow covered. So She's actually a retired law enforcement officer. And she was riding in the car with her friend who was bringing her home, and we'll call her friend C. And in her own words,
Sponsored by the letter.
Yep. Hold on, I gotta get into character. Dun, dun, dun. We were just talking about general things. Then there was a small truck in front of us. No other traffic on the road in either direction. The road itself was mostly clear, but did have areas of snow ice spots. The weather was cold, but there was no snow falling, and it was a cloudless night. We saw a large, tall, dark, and oddly shaped creature run out from the left side of the overpass and hit the rear quarter panel of the small truck in front of us, causing the truck to fishtail. Luckily, the small pickup did regain control, but it didn't stop to see what collided with it. If anything, it seemed to speed up, as if it got a view of what it hit it, and wanted to get the heck out of Dodge. It looked like a giant wolf. It was bipedal, not on all fours. It was at least 7 to 7.5 feet tall. It had a kind of mane around its head, much like a lion's mane. The hind legs looked like dog legs when they are up on two legs, like the knees are backwards, which seemed more pronounced as it was running across a two-lane highway left to right. The front legs are swinging freely as it ran. The face was definitely canine, much like a collie face, elongated with a snout and nose protruding from the face. The mouth was slightly open as it ran, and the creature was covered by a longish dark hair but in varying lengths. It had pointy ears that seemed more on the top portion of its head rather than on the sides. We watched as it ran off to the right side of the highway and disappeared into small trees and weeds along the road. It seemed to pay us no heed whatsoever, as if it was unconcerned that we were fast approaching it. C kept driving but was silent. I asked her, "Did you just see?" She replied, "Yes, I did." I said, "Okay." We drove the next 10 minutes in silence till we got to my driveway. We went into my house and I made us some tea. We sat and discussed what we had seen. I'm not sure if it was relief to have the other confirm what was seen, but we agreed on all aspects, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to talk about it. I don't need to read the rest of it. Basically, they got to her house. They sat there. They talked. And then the chick drove home. I had to stay. If I saw that, I would have stayed the fucking night, drove home in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Damn.
Now, you got to think about the mass and size of something that hits the rear quarter panel of a pickup and makes it swerve.
Right. You're talking. We're not talking like even Great Dane or even Saint Bernard. We're talking like bear or horse or buffalo.
Deer. You know, a deer would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's almost as if it was fucking with the people driving the truck.
Yeah.
Because it could have ran around it, but it ran right into it.
Like it just lowered its shoulder and said, "Fuck you."
Yep. It was like, "Hey, I'm going to fuck with you."
I'm kind of liking the Dogman.
Yeah, the Dogman is interesting. Sorry, my voice was kind of going after they're doing that voice.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things I found on that Linda Godfrey's site where she has some, like you said, most of her stuff is about the Bray Road creature, which they do believe is more of a werewolf than a Dogman, but she does have a lot of stuff about Dogman on here. But one of the things that is, I'm not going to read it like you did. I'll just paraphrase it. This family has this Dogman that just keeps coming back, and they keep seeing it on their roof.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like when he first seen it when he was a child, and then later he sees it again when he's like 33, and then starts seeing it even, so we're talking about like a long time in between, but still seeing this huge creature that we've just got done talking about could be 7.5 feet tall. That's just sitting out there on top of your house like a goddamn gargoyle.
Right. That's a bit creepy.
Yeah, I mean, and then it didn't really do anything to him, but it just that he goes on to, and this is the part that I really wanted to come into. That he goes, at this moment, I realized that this creature is intelligent. I just love that word because that's when you said it was fucking with him. That reminded me of this story here because he says this creature is intelligent. So
right.
Not only are we talking a 7 to 7.5 foot almost 8 foot, for lack of a better word, werewolf, but it has thought.
Right.
It's not just instinctual. There's reason for what it's doing. It's scheming. It's plotting. So if this thing is intelligent, then it stands to reason that it's probably smarter than the people that go out in the woods to look for it.
Right.
I mean, it may not be book smart, but if it's smart enough, it knows the woods, and it knows how to survive. It knows how to hide. It knows when it wants to have fun.
Right.
Fun to it is smashing up somebody's truck.
Yeah, and that just makes it even more terrifying.
Yeah. And then going back to when we were kids, running around in the woods, after midnight on a full moon, after watching a werewolf movie, it was probably sitting out there laughing at us.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Dipshits.
Oh, so there's, like, this one happened in Manistee County. Now, this was in 1975. This lady was newly married. She was about 21 years old, and she had a small baby. Her little sister, who was a teenager, was visiting her and her husband. Her husband was like 10 years older than her, and it was getting late at night. It was around 11 or 12, so they all settled down to go to sleep. They're just starting to relax and get sleepy when out of nowhere they hear this horrible, loud howl yell. Now, a lot of people describe the howl of the Dogman as being like a weird human scream or an infant scream and stuff like that. I've heard it described several different ways. So they hear this, and, as she describes, she said it made her chest vibrate and her ears hurt. She said the sound was not human, but had a guttural human-like sound mixed with what sounded like a wolf. And they're living in a mobile home. And if you've ever basically, a mobile home is a trailer.
Yeah.
You ever lived in one of those walls? Yes, they're metal, but they're thin as fuck.
Yeah.
So they hear it. They jump out of bed. Her and her husband looked at each other and at the same time said, "What the hell was that?" Her husband, who was an avid hunter, wasn't the kind of guy to scare easily, but his face had drained of all color. Her sister came running down the hallway, also white as ghost, and said, "What was that?" And neither one of them knew. So they're like, "We don't know. We don't have a fucking clue." So her husband goes and grabs his rifle, because that's what you always do. He opened up the back door and yelled out the back door, "You better get the fuck out of here. I'll blow your head off." Then he sits and listens for a moment before she yells at him to please shut the door. So he shuts the door, and they never heard any more after that. So basically, they stayed up all night because they couldn't go. They were afraid to go to sleep at that point. So yeah, that was a bit interesting. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of stories. Like, you got to wonder, okay, being in a trailer, that would freak the shit out of me, because I've been in trailers. Those things are not good to be in.
Right. There's another trailer one where they see something out their window. The cat is actually sitting in the window staring at this thing, and staring back, and it leans up and puts a snout print on their window.
Yeah.
And later, like the next day, he goes outside to look at the tracks that came up to their window, and he says he's 6'4", and he had to look up to see where the snout print was. So that puts it at 7 to 7.5 feet tall.
Right.
And this thing's just on the other side of the glass. It easily could have just reached through, grabbed the cat, and ate it, and left. Right.
But yeah, and I recall that story. That was in my research too, because he talked about, didn't he have like Christmas lights up?
Yeah, it was Christmas time.
Yeah, and he saw this thing a couple different times.
Yeah.
But he had gone outside, and he had his gun, or no, he had his machete. And he was mustering up his courage and started charging at the thing. And then he heard a voice in his head say, "Don't." And he just froze and dropped the machete. And he made eye contact with the creature and saw intelligence behind those eyes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found that fascinating. But he's like, it could have been the lights that attracted the creature. It could have been the cats, but he said he didn't feel menaced by it.
No, and he also goes on to say, he goes to describe it. He says, "You ever see that '80s movie, The Howling?"
Mm-hmm.
So when I keep referencing that as, if you want to know what the Dogman looks like, go back and watch that movie. Not only is it a good one, don't watch the other ones because like starting the second Howling, it turns into like late night Skinamax. It's like just orgies of flesh, and I don't really understand why that's all about. Werewolves eating people, but I guess they're eating people, but just not in the vein that we're used to seeing werewolves eat people. I want to see more of the gore fest, less of the 69 in my werewolf movies.
Right. Here's another report, and this is in Washita County. Washita. Blah. Here in Michigan, we have some fucked up names for our counties.
Yes.
All right. This guy had 3 different encounters with 3 different creatures. He's like, I know what I saw when I was younger. I saw it looked like a wolf or a big German shepherd on its hind legs running through a very thick patch of woods. It only happened for a second, but I remember the long muzzle and pointed ears distinctly. That was his first encounter. His second encounter was a little bit more exciting. He was at his uncle's farm, which was miles north of Ann Arbor. So he was coming out of the barn to get some more food when he heard some sticks breaking in the tree line to his right. He's like, he thinks it's one of those dogs had to go outside. So he went to go see if that was the case. He walked towards the sound and remember hearing the creature flinch because the movement stopped as I approached. I called out for the golden retriever and peered into the trees. The barn had spotlights facing the house, and with a white paint job on it, they created a glow that allowed me to see better. About 7 feet off the ground, a long muzzle poked through the trees, followed by the full figure of this creature. It was only 20 feet away from me, so I got the full picture. It was tall and lean, but very muscular. It had a distinct brown pelt on its body with blackish fur on its shoulders. It had huge paws for feet, but its hands looked like they had 5 fingers, so they resembled long human hands. Except for the fur and claws on them, the head was the scariest. This thing had a huge set of canines. It looked like it was snarling, but I believe it was trying to smile. I couldn't make out exactly what its eye color was because of how dark it was, but they pierced into my soul. As the creature came into full view, I remember saying out loud to myself, "Werewolf!" I backed up slowly, and the creature stood there like a proud man standing over deer he had hunted. It watched me for about 30 seconds, but it felt like 30 minutes. That's when my father, uncle, cousin, and grandfather all came out of the barn. When I tell you this thing ran, I meant it ran. It turned around, dropped to all fours, and leaped in the forest, making only a slight noise. Told my cousin about it, but he didn't believe me. I knew my father wouldn't believe me because he doesn't believe in anything.
Damn cousin.
Right. Then goes on to his final encounter. The same kind of creature knocked on his window.
Oh.
His curtains were drawn. He kept his curtains open so he could see the woods. And he lives in the middle of a patch of woods, kind of like I did, near a fire road. He wasn't asleep yet because he just, and this is something that I've heard a lot in these stories, where he just felt something was weird, wrong, something was off.
Yeah.
It felt easy. He was trying to sleep and he heard a slight scrape on the house wall below the window. And his window was 8 feet off the ground. When he sat up in bed to see what's going on, he saw the head of what you could only describe as a werewolf in his window, which is only 10 feet away from his bed. He cursed, jumped up, and turned on the light and grabbed the survival machete he had in his closet. Everybody's got a machete, apparently.
Fair.
I think I'm the person in Michigan did not have a machete.
What's wrong with
By the time he turned around, it was gone. So the next day, he goes outside to see if he can find any tracks, and he could find no tracks.
Wow. That's weird because that's one of the things that everybody always finds is afterwards. That's their proof is the tracks.
Right.
It's almost like these people get a Dogman track kit.
Right.
Put these on the bottom of your shoes and then it's run.
Right. Now, you're on Linda Godfrey's blog thing. Did you read the one about the guy who had like several different encounters?
No.
All right.
Other than the roof one, the guy the one that they kept spotting it on the roof.
Right. Let me see. Go through this real quick. No, I think this was the roof one. Yeah, the roof one was his actual third time seeing it.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but there's another roof one about this girl Tina that she had when she was a kid. It was right before that one. And basically what happened is her and her friend had climbed up on the shed by using their neighbor's fence and a prop board. They got on top of the shed, and it was like dusk to dark, and you know, the shed is like 8 or 9 feet off the ground. The roof is.
Okay.
So they're sitting there, and so she's sitting up there with her friend. All of a sudden, not saying anything, friend jumped off the highest part of the shed and took off. I mean, he just flew, headed straight for the house. And she's like sitting there going, what the fuck? Where are you going? I don't understand. And then she turned around to see why he ran, and then she saw this thing. It looked half dog and half human. It had to be over 8 feet high, and its reaching length was over 4 feet because she's sitting there, and it was reaching for her, and its hand was inches away from her ankle. Then she goes on to, she said she doesn't remember the color of it or anything, but she knows it was standing on the ground. It was massive. Then she said it's literally the fastest she ever rolled away. She doesn't remember how she got down, but she ran inside and told her parents, and the parents came out and found nothing. But she told her parents that there was a tall man outside with very hairy arms and big ears.
Big ears. What kind of ear? What do you mean by big? Well, they're kind of pointy, like Cujo's.
Right. But I mean, she still lives in that house, according to this article.
Oh wow. I would have moved the fuck away.
You're right.
Long time ago.
Right. Now the roof guy, his first encounter was in 1986.
Mm-hmm. Which would have been a year before the song came out.
Right. And it was in the summertime, and him and his friends always played out into the woods. And
sounds familiar.
Yep, they played war, as they called it.
Sounds familiar.
So he wanted to go out and get his spot early for the game. So he goes out there like 10 o'clock in the morning before everybody else is rounding up to go out there. And he was crouched in the tall grass facing the playground behind the Alto Elementary School. And he heard a splash in the creek behind him and some very fast movement. So, it startled him. And, he turns around and he saw a large black-gray wolf-like creature that was running down the creek bed alongside the creek behind him. It was shifting from 4 to 2 legs and jumped after about 3 seconds into the brush away from me into the trees. Seemed to have disappeared, and he didn't hear it anymore. He was a country woodsy kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he didn't understand, but he was scared. So he ran all a quarter mile home. Didn't tell anybody what he saw. Just went into his house and went to his bedroom and just sat there and didn't go out and play war. He said he remembered that it resembled the werewolves in the movie The Howling that he had just seen not too long before that. A couple years before that. And he's like, it's about 7 to 8 feet tall, very muscular, about 300 pounds. Its head resembled a timber wolf with long canines and long clawed hands. Its legs bent backwards like a canine. He said it glanced at him, but it didn't want me, he said he didn't want him to see, he could tell it didn't want him to see it. And he didn't smell it at all. So, yeah. But, yeah, he didn't go back out to those woods again for a very long time.
So he obviously didn't smell like the red-haired giant did, whether he said that one smelled like skunk.
Right. Yeah. His second encounter was in 2009. And this is, that was when he heard it on the roof the first time. And he went outside and looked up on the roof and saw the thing looking back down at him. And then it jumps off the roof and runs. And the third time was when he came out with the machete and it said "don't" in his head.
Don't.
Okay.
Now, would that lend to it being not only intelligent but telepathic?
Possibly, quite possible.
Maybe it was telling him, like, dude, come on, please. I'm
Right.
I'm almost 8 feet tall. I weigh almost 500 pounds. I will fuck you up.
Right.
And it's just like, don't. And it's best Sylvester Stallone.
Right. I will fuck you up.
Now, one thing that I found was kind of interesting. Now, this is the Michigan Dogman, but similar creatures have been, there's the Bray Road thing in Wisconsin, but there's actually been sightings in eastern Pennsylvania of a very similar creature.
Yep.
As the Michigan Dogman. So it's just like what we talked last week about the giants not necessarily being specific to Afghanistan, because there's actual other sightings there that where we call it the Michigan Dogman, there's similar ones around. So like when I was talking earlier about the one being in Michigan, and then there's, then you got the one in Wisconsin, but there could just be one being sighted all around in Michigan, and it could, move around. But like, and then there could be like one in Pennsylvania, but like you have territorial wars between them, kind of like a Wolverine will have, a male Wolverine will have an area that it controls that could be like 500 square miles. So something like this, a dogman could be similar to like, in the vein, if it's not actually a shapeshifter or some kind of lycanthrope, it could actually be territorial to where its mating ground would be several thousand miles.
Wow. Yeah. Actually, that's quite fascinating, because if you think about it, we have turf wars. Gangs have turf wars. Yeah. There's another sighting that I want to talk about, just because this one is the closest to my home. And this was in Clare. Which, from where I'm at, Clare,
Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, Clare's 15 minutes north of me. So this girl is driving home from work at 11:45 at night. She's driving this 1996 Dodge Intrepid, and she said that as she's driving down the road, she sees this creature eating garbage by the side of the road, digging through the garbage. And she could see it pretty clear, because the house there had a yard light that was turned on. And so she's driving her car, so she sees it, so she slows down and she's kind of creeping up to it. And she didn't see its face. She was looking at the body. And the one thing different in this, is she talked about how it had short hair like a horse or a greyhound's, and it was shiny. And then she said it was at an odd position as it appeared hunched down with its arms and face low to the ground as it was eating garbage, and it had shoulders like a man. It was jet black and very heavily muscled, and as the thing ate, she could see the muscles in its shoulder and arms moving under the skin. Said, but it was larger than a man, perhaps the size of a bear when hunched over. If she had to guess, she said it would be over 7 feet tall if it was fully standing. She goes on to say that finally looked up, and she said she still gets goosebumps to this day when she remembers the face. The face was horrible. The eyes were red, like sort of red that appeared to give off its own luminescence. This could be incorrect, and it could have been that way. They were just incredibly reflective from the yard light, but the creature was looking right at her, not up. So it was very odd that they should glow like that. The teeth were the most predominant feature. They looked so unreal that she stared at it until it moved, trying to convince herself that she wasn't seeing it wrong, and there was a logical explanation, but there wasn't. The face was shorter than most werewolf or dogman images, and the teeth were so large that it seemed impossible that such a thing could exist. It terrified her. It had ears like a Doberman, but they curled in slightly, and it was sitting back on its heels, and it was built like a man from the chest up, shoulders and all. kind of made a little lunge at her, and she just took off like a bat out of hell. But yeah, that one's really close to home here.
Yeah, that's funny because there's another one on here that takes place. There's another sighting in Clare area that the Metal Mouth.
Yeah, that's the one I just read.
Oh, okay. Sorry, but they also go on to talk about UFO sightings that have been in that area. The deer man that has been found in that area, and the UFO sightings over the town that you live in.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that all that phenomenon happened right around you.
Right. So could they be aliens?
That's potential. That could be too. That is a very there's now I could see that goes along. That could be a possibility because there's a lot of people that believe that Bigfoot is alien, and that's why we have a hard time seeing him, because he's more of a multi-dimensional creature as opposed to just some remnant from evolution.
Right. So I want to bring us back on track, and I'm going to have you. I got to step away for a minute, so why don't you read a couple of encounters that we haven't gone over yet to the people, and I'll be back and comment on them.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right. So while he's gone, so the thing about that I really like about this is I've always been fascinated with different creatures. They're like the chupacabra and all this other stuff, but with the Dogman, and when I was I don't know, like 10 or 11 years old, we got a cassette copy of the song The Legend, done by that DJ from Traverse City, and in there he brings out a lot of different points that a lot of people talk about in these different descriptions. So one thing that does concern me is that a lot of these are reported after the song came out, and there's a lot of specific details from these reports that are very similar, but they straight out of the song. Like the 7.5 feet tall in the song, he talks about a church that had claw and bite marks done by very sharp teeth and very sharp claws, but to be able to do this, they'd have to stand 7'4". So when a lot of these all talk about the same area, or the same, a lot of little specific details that were in this dude's song, like it's sitting down and then you look at it and then it stands up and stares you down. That was in the very first verse of the song, where he goes into a bunch of loggers poke the thing with a stick, and it comes out and it stands up and stares them down. So one thing I started talking about, Craig, was
yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, but do you see where I was going with it? Is a lot of the points they talk about were in reports that may have happened before the song came out, but a lot of them are very specific to different things that were in the song.
Right, and one thing to take note of too is he rewrote the lyrics two different times after its first release and updated them.
Right. So that is a good point. But I have to, and some of those things we kind of have to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And, because we are going with eyewitness accounts, some of them done 40 years after the fact.
Right.
But I'm not saying that somebody whose truck just got smashed in, or snout marks up on a window that a dog couldn't reach.
Right.
undoctored photos of hands next to paw prints that are left on the ground. I mean, those are different things that are hard to
Explain away.
Yeah, where there's a lot of these other little details, like it reached for my leg and I jumped away. Well, it obviously didn't want you because the speed and agility that we've already talked about from these things, it's going to run down a little girl.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. And it's kind of touching on what you said. I mean, I played that audio we had that I found, but
the OnStar bit on audio.
Right. But I mean, other than that, there's really nobody talks about being attacked by one.
Yeah.
You talk about Bigfoot or chupacabras, you have people saying I was attacked by it.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about they were attacked by this thing.
Like the Jersey Devil, there's tons of attacks from the Jersey Devil, which is one that we will do in the future. That's foreshadowing. But you're right. So my opinion is this is more of a docile creature as opposed to, a Wendigo, which is, a cannibal turned beast that's now cursed for all time. So I think by going through this, we brought up those questions at the very beginning of what could the Dogman be. I don't think it would be a Wendigo because we've never gotten that girl's firsthand account because it would have killed her.
Yeah, it would have ate her right there on the spot.
Yeah, it wouldn't have just reached for her and let her jump off. Right. It would have caught her before she hit the ground.
Right. And I mean, remember, we talked about how people said that they saw intelligence behind the eyes.
Yes.
So this thing would have, if it's, a thinking, plotting creature, it's probably going to, if it does attack, it's going to do it where it can't get caught.
Yeah, it'll have an exit strategy.
Right. Because that girl that was sitting on the roof and it reached up for her, they lived in like a suburban area.
Yeah.
It was close to an inner city.
We did have the account of it just jumping across the road. It came out of nowhere, disappeared into nothing. So we have eyewitness accounts of it being able to camouflage and hide itself very well. But coming into a suburban area, like it's not going to walk, it's not going to go to South Beach in Miami and just kind of like blend in.
Right.
It's a little hard that one is probably the least believable of the ones that we had talked about.
Right.
Of that, because the whole sensationalized, it reached for me, but missed me, but like I said, if it was a Wendigo, it would have torn her to shreds. If it was a werewolf, they would have seen it during the day and it would have torn her to shreds.
Right. And they even made a movie about this in 2011. The movie's called Dogman. It stars Larry Joe Campbell. I've never seen it, so I can't recommend it or not recommend it.
There is a sequel for those that do care. It's called Dogman 2: The Wrath of the Litter. I can't make that shit up. That's real.
No,
yeah,
I mean,
it's actually got a description here. It's been a year since the Dogman terrorized a Midwestern community and nearly killed Hank Purvis. But now things seem to be settled down. Everyone has gotten back to their routine. And then I actually have to click on it to read the rest of it because I don't get it.
Right. Well, it comes down to, have I ever seen the Dogman? No. Have I ever met anybody who's claimed to have seen it? No. Have I seen weird shit in Michigan out of the corner of my eye? Yes.
Absolutely.
Do I have any proof? No.
Right.
So I guess it comes down to it. Jason, is there a Dogman in Michigan or not?
I think that there's probably a creature out there that people don't understand what it is. But is it Dogman? It's possible. I mean, I don't know everything, and I hate to be that dick that says I debunk this because I don't know. And that's kind of how I take most of my life. Is there a God? Probably not. But could there be? Maybe. I don't know. Is he an architect? I think he's more of a computer programmer than anything.
Right.
but I think there's definitely the terrain and the area that it lives in. I think it's viable that a big creature could live in that area. Maybe not in the suburban area reaching for little kids on rooftops.
Right.
But there could be a large intelligent predator that has evaded being seen or captured or killed that lives in that area. I think
Right.
because I mean, just think if you've ever been through that area, it's nothing but dense forest. In between the dense forest, you have crop fields, and then you have swampland. That's essentially what that whole area is. And there very easily could be something that's hiding in there because a lot of people don't go to those areas.
Not unless they're hunting.
Yeah. But would I think that something of that size would live closer to, say, the area that you live in?
No.
Maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But the way that area is growing, and if it did, it's been pushed north, maybe across the Mackinac Bridge and went up there.
Even the house that I grew up in, we talked about the woods around it. There's houses in those woods now.
Right.
So, it's a lot more populated here than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah. So if it was, the Dogman has migrated.
Right. But we have lots of stories of animals migrating here in Michigan because they're forced out of places because of population growing.
Exactly. And that's why people hit hundreds of deer every year.
Yes. I was told one day that I was crazy because I was driving up to Houghton Lake and I saw on the side of the road, I saw a wolf. It came right up to the side of the road, and this was between Harrison and Houghton Lake. And I mean, I looked at it as I drove by it, and I'm like, "That's a wolf." It looked hungry. But there was like, "There's no wolves." Yeah, there are. I mean, there are wolves in Michigan. Most of them are usually known to be in Upper Michigan or the UP. But again, they go looking for food, and this was in March, so there wasn't a lot of food out for them at that point.
Right, and see that's a prime example of kind of what I was saying when you asked me is there a Dogman. You saw a wolf that people don't think live. They're still in that area. They don't think there's any apex predators like that live there, but you've seen one. You've seen proof. So could there be something bigger that lives there that forced this wolf to move closer to a road, closer to a place where you could see it? It's possible.
Right. Anything's possible. I mean, to say that we know everything that lives on this planet is just ignorant.
Exactly. I mean, they didn't know a chupacabra actually existed, and then they caught one on camera. And it was a police dash cam that caught the first one. Yeah. And it wasn't just a dog with mange. It was something different.
Right. So I guess to sum up this episode, we talked in length about the Michigan Dogman. We gave a little background on what people think it may have stemmed from. A lot of it goes back to tribal lore. But it's, I'm fascinated by the paranormal. I always have been. I think it stems back to my childhood. Like Jason said, we used to watch horror movies all the time with my mom. So always been fascinated with the paranormal. Comes down to, do I believe there's a Dogman in Michigan? You know what? I would need to see more evidence.
Yeah.
All the pictures I've seen, I can explain away.
Yep.
I can't explain away people's stories that they tell, but I can't explain away the pictures because I'm like, yeah, one looks like a mountain lion, one looks like a bear. Okay, that one's fake, that one's faked. That looks like an ape.
That's from a movie that we've seen.
Yep. So I mean, people can do amazing things with film.
Yes.
Especially since it's not even film anymore. You just take digital pictures and play with it on your computer.
Just look at the movies we watch.
Right.
They're bringing back characters from old Star Wars movies and making them actual characters in new movies. We're not talking about like freaky, like weird, like Jar Jar Binks type of characters. I'm talking about like Peter Cushing, the actor, they're bringing him back after he died, and he's a character in Star Wars now, again, because of digital enhancements. You know, they're doing that with an entire film. So
Right.
it's not out of the realm of possibilities that people are trying this shit with a still image.
Exactly. So, I mean, I guess it breaks down to I'm skeptical. You know, I would have to see proof.
Okay.
Without proof, I'm going to say there's no Dogman in Michigan. It's all based off a song, and, you know, people just turned it into something more.
I'm skeptical that it's Dogman. I'm not skeptical that there's something that a bigger predator out there, because there's no other predators in that area other than the wolf that you saw.
Right. Well, there's bear.
Okay.
I mean, there's been bear sighted in Clare, you know, and stuff
That's
like
far south, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
But, you know, do I believe that something like that could be out there? Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I need proof. You know, I do have some of my heritage is Native American, and, you know, a lot of that stuff, you know, I have strong feelings about. It does make sense that it could be a skinwalker who is trapped between forms and just stuck that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or the Wendigo, you know. But again, we don't have any proof of that either.
Right.
So, again, I'm going to go back to, if you show me proof, I'll believe it.
All right. And on that, we'll say that Dogman probably doesn't exist, but we're leaving the door open to possibilities of a bigger predator out there.
Exactly.
Sweet. So, hey, thank you for listening. Once again, this is the Bunny Rabbit's Hole. Insert tagline here.
Bum, bum, bum.
And this, of course, is my co-host, Craig.
And this is Jason.
All right. So on that one, we'll see you next week when we're talking about something new and fantastic.
Yes, which we haven't even talked about yet, and we don't even know.
All right. So till next week.
Peace out.